Hey, it's Jared with Gear and Light. Today I'm going to share my thoughts on the RF 35mm lens for Canon. Of course, it's attached to the R6. I've been spending some time with this R6 and these different RF lenses, and I'm just impressed. Canon, of course, has always been known for fantastic lenses, and their glass is just, it's amazing. It doesn't matter whether you get a more budget lens or you get an L series lens, you're gonna get something fantastic that's just gonna capture amazing images. And so this R6 that I've been using here for the last couple of weeks, paired with the RF 35mm and some of the other lenses that I've been using, have just been absolutely fantastic experience, and I wanted to share my thoughts on this lens, being that this is the most budget-friendly lens that I've been able to use on the RF platform so far, and share some of the images that I've been able to capture so that you can decide for yourself whether or not this is the right lens for you. So this is the 35mm RF f1.8 IS macro STM lens, so it's got all sorts of words and letters. So what exactly does that mean? Well, it's a 35mm lens, which I love as a prime lens. A 35mm is just a great lens to have. It's a great focal length for capturing pretty much anything. I mean, even portraits you can use a 35mm for, but as a landscape lens, it's just absolutely fantastic. So my first time using this R6, the first lens that I put on was the 35mm, and I went out and just shooting and kind of experiencing this camera and this lens combination, and I'm impressed. I love it. Being that it's an f1.8 and it is more on the budget-friendly side, it's a $500 lens or $499 here in the US currently at the time that I'm recording this, and that's a good price for a lens of this quality. The build quality is absolutely great on this lens, as has been on every RF lens that I've taken a look at. So this lens is just great build quality. It feels good. It feels solid. And of course, on this R6, it's just a great lens. So it has two rings on it, which this is synonymous with all of the RF lenses that I've been able to use, is that even though this is a prime lens, which usually would only have a focus ring only, it also has this additional ring here which can be mapped to do different things. For me, I set it to ISO so that I can adjust my ISO without having to go to the back of the camera and do so. So fantastic, because I hold my camera like this. I kind of, rest the camera on my hand with a smaller lens like this and just kind of hold the lens, even though this is a smaller setup and some people would hold their camera like this, or maybe even some people like this. I always hold my camera like this to just add as much stabilization as I can to my shots by utilizing this arm as much of a tripod as it could be for my camera. So having my hand here and being able to adjust this ring for ISO is absolutely fantastic. This lens does have some stabilization, which is great. A lot of these RF lenses have stabilization, which not a lot of other manufacturers, I won't mention their names, are putting stabilization on all of their lenses. They're relying solely on in-body stabilization, which is fine, but having lens stabilization is just a great addition. So of course our two switches here on the side of this lens is our stabilization and our autofocus manual focus. So the additional control ring that we have here does have a step to it, or a click, and so you can hear it's clicking. I can't declick that. I wish that you could declick that, so that way you could have a silent option, and I can use this for adjusting exposure while I'm shooting video. But nonetheless, I still just absolutely love having it, and it is a great option. This lens, because it is a rental, it did come with a clear filter on it, BW 52mm filter, which doesn't affect the image quality at all and is a great option for protecting this lens. Now, when you do focus, you might have been able to see there that this actually pops out a little bit. And as I change the focus here, you can see this is popping in and out. And so this extends out quite a bit for trying to achieve focus. And so you definitely want to have a protection filter on here, just something to protect the front end of the lens. Highly recommend that. I'll link to the one that's on this camera down in the description below. So performance-wise, how did this lens work out? Well, for me, being able to go from f1.8 to f22 on a lens of this size is great. That's a big range. And so whether I am shooting out in super bright situations and I don't have an ND filter and I need to stop down to that f/22, maybe I want that sunburst, and so I'm stopping down quite a bit, trying to get that sunburst effect, which I haven't done with this lens because the sun hasn't been out. But I have that range because it goes all the way down to f/22. f/1.8 being great in those lower light situations, and then also in those situations where you want that shallow depth of field, the f/1.8 is fantastic. This lens focuses fast and achieves focus extremely quick, even in low light situations like where I'm sitting right now. I am in a low light situation, just pointing this camera forward, and it is able to pull focus very easily. I'll get it out of focus and we'll go back, pull focus, boom. Out of focus, focus, boom. So that's pretty fast. It's even though there's such a long throw for the focus there, this is achieving focus really fast, and that's important on pretty much any lens, that it achieves autofocus really fast, especially in lower light situations. So this lens, I've primarily been shooting outdoors with this camera and this lens. I went down to Flathead Lake here in Montana, which is a 15-minute drive away for me, and was shooting some photos yesterday, and then I went up into Glacier National Park today, and got as far as we can go into Glacier National because, of course, there's lots of snow, but captured some images as well. And not only just with this lens, but with the 24-70 f2.8, the 70-200 f2.8, and the 15-35 millimeter f2.8. Those are all L series lenses, so if you're interested in those, make sure to check out other videos that I've got linked below so that you can click around and watch some other RF lens videos. But what I've been impressed with this lens being that it's a $500 lens. It is the most budget 35 millimeter that you can get directly from Canon in the RF lineup. It's just the performance and the images that I was able to get. Nice, sharp images all the way across, which is important. We don't want soft images on the outer edges unless that's the look that we're going for. But I would rather be controlling that myself by focus placement than have it be a feature of the lens or a lack of the ability for the lens to capture sharp images along the edges. And so for me, a lens like this could be used for real estate photography. It would be great because of the sharpness and the limited amount of distortion around the edges. Not that it's completely gone. There is some distortion. If you're shooting a building or architecture, there is a little bit, but you can correct for that very easily using the picture profile or the camera lens profile within Lightroom. It takes that out with one little click and no problems there. And so this lens also great for landscapes just because of the 35 millimeter. You get a nice wide view of everything. And, that's what I was using it most for, because that's one of the reasons that I live in Montana, is because I want to shoot landscapes all the time. And you could point a camera pretty much anywhere up here and shoot a beautiful landscape. So 35 millimeter lens, I think this is a great option if you're looking for something to add to your camera bag that's not going to break the bank. $500 is still a lot of money, but this lens is going to provide a ton of value because of the quality in which Canon has put into a lens like this. If you were to compare this 35 millimeter to the 35 millimeter lenses of other manufacturers, you're not going to get as much value out of your lens as you would get with this lens. That additional control ring, a huge plus. The build quality of this lens is paired to the build quality of this camera, and at this price point you usually don't get that, especially with the price point of this R6 camera. So absolutely fantastic lens package. The STM and the image stabilization paired together when shooting video means that you're going to get smooth focus, just very nice fall off with focus. Racking focus between two items, of course, is just beautiful and smooth, and you can't go wrong with this lens. So being that this is the only RF 35 millimeter lens from Canon, there aren't other options like an f1.4 or even an f1.2 yet. I'm sure that that is on the roadmap, but for me this would be a must-have because it's STM series lens, which is great for autofocus. It's the RF series lens, which is great being paired with this camera, and it means I also get this additional control ring, but it just pairs amazingly with any of the RF line cameras. So as a more budget-friendly 35 millimeter lens, I don't think that you can do much better than this lens that Canon has put out. I've got links down in the description below, as I mentioned, to the filter and the lens itself. I did rent this lens from Lens Pro To Go, as well as this camera and the other Canon equipment that I've been using these last couple of weeks. So if you're interested, I've got a link to Lens Pro To Go down below as well. Sometimes renting a lens and trying it out first will help you understand whether or not the lens is right for you, so you can check that out down in the description. But that's going to do it for this video. If you want to learn more about the R6, I've got my review, my full review. I've got a tutorial on this camera, and then I also have a mini course coming up soon teaching you everything that there is to know about the R6, which is going to include some of these other lenses and shooting in manual mode and also shooting video. So if you want to learn more about the R6 and these lenses in general, definitely check out those links that I've got down in the description below for you. That's going to do it for today. Thanks for being here, and I hope to see you in another video soon. Take care.